Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast, which is dedicated to nonprofit leaders who are passionate about making a difference. I'm your host, Haley Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on a journey of growth, inspiration, and transformation. At Lead with Heart, we believe that leading with heart means embracing empathy, compassion, and authenticity in every aspect of our work. It's about putting people first, fostering genuine connections, and creating a positive impact that goes beyond numbers and metrics. In the nonprofit world, it can often feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The challenges are immense and the road can be lonely. But here, you're not alone. This podcast is a community where we support each other, share our stories, and learn together. Each episode will dive into personal and professional development topics tailored specifically for nonprofit leaders. From innovative fundraising strategies and effective team management to self-care practices and leadership insights, we're here to provide you with practical strategies that you can apply to your life and work. My goal is to empower you, elevate your leadership, and engage your heart in all that you do. I want to help you navigate the unique challenges of the nonprofit sector with confidence and resilience, so you can continue to create meaningful change in the world. So whether you're driving to a meeting, taking a break, or winding down for the day, tune in and join us on this journey. Together, we'll discover what it truly means to lead with heart. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lead with Heart podcast. I feel like I say this a lot, but this is especially a pinch me moment because I have Bea Boccalandro on the podcast today, and she is a world-renowned advisor in corporate purpose, corporate social responsibility, and environmental, social, and governance initiatives. She's the author of Do Good at Work and the president of VeraWorks. Bea has appeared in the Harvard Business Review and Forbes, and her clients include Disney, IBM, Tom's Shoes, and Toyota. Well, welcome to the podcast, Bea.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I know my bio doesn't say a lot about the nonprofit sector, and I do focus essentially on getting the corporate sector to be as enlightened as nonprofit leaders are. That's my focus. But just so you know, I really enjoy helping the nonprofit sector in whatever way I can. And for example, I taught for years and years. I finally stopped just because of the travel at Georgetown University. I help nonprofit leaders in a leadership program there with how to partner with businesses, how to convince them that they should partner and give nonprofits a lot of support and all of that. So I'm especially thrilled to be on this particular podcast because it's very close to my heart, the whole nonprofit sector.
Well, thank you so much. And I would love to go back to your story. I always like to ask this question. What is your background? Is there a specific moment in childhood that you remember about having this idea of social impact? And is there a thread of influence that really led you to the work today? Can you walk us through that timeline?
Yes. So there is a moment where I decided to do exactly that, which is what you described in my bio, which is helping basically companies do good, and not just leaders, but even individual employees do good from the company so that capitalism is more a force for good. So that's what I'm up to. But there is a moment, and it actually involves the nonprofit sector. I started off my career helping nonprofits be more effective. And in particular, measuring their impact. So I'm a data nerd. You'll know from my book, there's 158 footnotes. Everything is empirically supported, that sort of stuff. So I love data. And what I was doing was I was crisscrossing around across the country, helping nonprofits like measure, are we making a difference? How could we do better? So that was how I started my career. And I was flying into Jackson, Mississippi, it so happened, for a really community-wide meeting on some fairly serious societal issues that the community was facing, to facilitate a discussion on how the community could come together and overcome these challenges. And this was pre-Uber. I was in a taxi from the airport to the meeting, and I'm just looking around. I'm in a different place, and I see, oh, there's a gas station, private business. Oh, there's a business park that looks like maybe an accounting firm. Oh, there's 3 retail stores. And I'm like, you know what? I don't see many nonprofits on the way to this meeting, because I suspect the large part of American society is the private sector. And I bet because I had done meetings like this before, I bet when I get to this meeting, they're not going to be there. That gas station CEO or any leadership from that gas station is not going to be there. And neither are the people from the accounting firm. Maybe a few will be there because they're on the boards of nonprofits, but they're not really going to be present to help with these serious issues that Jackson, Mississippi is encountering. And so I realized that the answer to my question on how big an impact the nonprofit sector could have was really contingent on how much support can the nonprofit sector get from the biggest part of our society, which is the private sector. In the US, we tend to think government is huge, right? Well, you put the entire government together, so federal, state, municipal, city, all of it together, and you throw in the entire nonprofit sector. So now you have the public service component of society, and it's still only half the size of the private sector. And that's throwing in universities and museums and everything. So it was that evening after the meeting, when it was true that the for-profit sector wasn't really there to support what nonprofits were up to, that I decided someone needs to change this. This was in 1999. And I decided I'm going to help the for-profit sector show up for our societal issues for real, in a meaningful way, so that the capitalism can be part of the solution. And so, yeah, there was one evening where I made that decision. And as it turned out, there were a lot of other people reaching these same conclusions from other places. And corporate social responsibility was already really a thing. I just didn't know about it. And now there's many of us doing this. So nonprofit leaders, just know that the change in the last 20 years on how relevant what you're up to is to the corporate sector is like night and day. You used to be like the backwaters of their consciousness. And now you can't find a Fortune 500 business that does not report annually what they are doing in terms of social impact. So things are brighter in that regard.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location, so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs. Helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. Yeah, I definitely agree. And yeah, I look at those annual reports and there's always those numbers and budgets of how much they've given to different social impact causes. And when it comes to just like breaking it down a little bit, what does corporate social responsibility actually mean? And how do corporations actually implement it? Obviously, I know it's probably different for each corporation, but like when it gets down to the nitty gritty, what does corporate social responsibility actually mean and what does it look like?
Yeah, and I'm going to go a little bit broader here because there's a lot of terms out there. There's corporate social responsibility, there's conscious capitalism, there's triple bottom line, there's ESG, which is under political, it's a heated political term now. And I'm going to clump them all together. Now, it's true that there are differences in the origin and therefore in the emphasis, but at the leadership level, really, they all say the same thing. And really, what that I'm just going to use the term corporate social responsibility to apply to all of them. So, corporate social responsibility is anything a company does. It can be the way they operate, it can be where they put their money, it can be how they make decisions on who their vendors are that takes into consideration the impact that has on societal causes. And that can be, of course, climate change, it can be homelessness, it can be extinction of species, it can be anything. And so, really, it's anything a company does. And so, I think for nonprofit leaders, one thing to realize is that philanthropy, that is writing a check and giving it to a nonprofit. I know cash is king and cash is the best thing, but that is just one tiny sliver of the corporate social responsibility a company has. So, for example, there's a program, a lunch program, a nutrition program for seniors. And they were having a hard time getting the men to come to the free lunches, right? And the idea was we know that seniors in this particular location weren't getting their nutrients. And so it's let's give them a nice, nutritious, warm meal every day at lunch. But the men weren't showing up. So many of the senior women showed up and the men didn't show up. So this nonprofit said, well, let's find out why. So they went to the men and they said, this is right down the street. We're giving you transportation. It's free. Why don't you come? And they said, because who wants to sit in like this ugly cafeteria? I'd rather just stay home, eat toast, and watch TV. So this nonprofit could have said, you know what? Why don't I go raise a whole bunch of money and then we can create a better environment. Maybe we can put, I don't know, ping pong tables or something, a better environment so that the men will show up. And there's nothing wrong with that approach. But what they did was different. And I think it's something that all nonprofits should keep in mind. What they did was they said, is there a business out there that part of their corporate social responsibility outside of the philanthropy might be helping us? And so they went to a restaurant and they said, what if we created a special menu? You prepared it, of course. And when people come in here with a certain card, they can order anything off the menu. We'll pay for it. And that's it. And so that's what they did. And this was like a pub. It was fun. And so guess what? Like their services, they were able to serve many more individuals. And then, of course, that restaurant, because they loved it, right? So their staff absolutely loved that they got a piece of that heart that you in the nonprofit sector have. And so they started helping more and more this nonprofit. And now they had a partner to help them with many more things. Like all of a sudden, there were servers from that restaurant showing up to help in other areas of this nonprofit. So that is corporate social responsibility. That restaurant decided like that they would serve certain people partnering with a nonprofit for free so that they could further this cause of like nutrition for seniors.
Wow, I love that story. And there's just so many stats about corporate responsibility and people wanting to work for organizations that are giving back. And when you obviously have extensive experience advising companies on CSR, what are some common misconceptions organizations have about corporate social purpose and how do you address them?
Well, there's a few mistakes. One is go for companies that have the deep pockets. And like deep pockets don't exist. Maybe they exist somewhere, but they don't really exist in the way you think. Like you can't look at what a company's revenues were in the year before and then go, okay, so they're a huge Fortune 500. They're down the street. They have deep pockets because that's all divvied up. That's almost like looking at the entire nonprofit sector and saying, well, their budget is huge, so they should be able to fund this. It's, well, no, I'm just one nonprofit, and this is as much control as I have over this many resources. So don't do that to companies. Don't go, I know you have deep pockets, so writing a $10,000 check should be no big deal because you're talking to, let's say you're talking to the philanthropy person. Well, they only give grants of 1,500 and they can only give so many of them and they can't double up those grants. Like it's not like one big bucket that they can pull as much. And even if you're talking to marketing, which would be smart, like if you can do a partnership with someone else, not just like the philanthropy or the CSR team, they also have budget. So forget the idea of the deep pockets. Instead, what I would suggest is reach out to the businesses you already have a relationship with. And what I mean by that is you're buying your donuts from someone when you bring them into a staff meeting. You are paying for electricity. Whatever commercial relationships you have, look there. Also, you're next to someone. So is there a 7-Eleven next to you? Approach them first. The second mistake I think that many nonprofits make is that when they go to a company, their first selling point is there is a dire need. And I know it's true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying it's not very effective to start there. So if you start with, here's what we can do for you, I'm not saying it's more important. It's absolutely what you're doing is more important than what you're going to do for the company. I totally believe that. But it's just where you start. And so if you say, for example, let's say that you approach let's go back to to the nonprofit that is trying to serve seniors. If they go to a grocery store and say, look, we have a lot of people that have food insecurity. It's only gotten worse and et cetera, et cetera. It's not terrible, but it's actually more effective if you go, do you guys have food waste? Does it bother you? Do you have anything to do with your food waste? We could take it off your hands. Like, try that first. Then you get into the amount of good it's going to do. Because if you give us that food waste, then we're going to be able to turn it into gold. We're just going to be able to brighten people's lives with it. But you start with what you're going to do for them. So I think those are like the top two.
Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today. Yeah, I think I love that. And I know I love that because, one, if you think about like the giving pie, like corporations only give 5% in the US. So it's not necessarily deep pockets, but like you said, it is about building partnership. It's about finding ways that you can benefit each other. And how do you align and build that partnership? And it's not just necessarily about the funds. It's like, how can you provide access? And I love that reframe of, we have food insecurity too. Do you have food waste? Is there a way that we can take that off your hands? Because it benefits them, the problem they're trying to solve, and it benefits the problem you're trying to solve, and you can work together towards that.
Yes. Yeah, that's beautifully said. There's a Harvard Business School professor, Jim Austin, and he had a name for what you just described, finding synergistic ways to support each other. And he called that like an integrated alliance versus a transactional one, which is, I'm just going to give you this and maybe you give me this in return. And so I love that word integrated because it's almost like you could be like 2 departments of one initiative. And there are great examples of, oh my God, I'm blanking on their name, but a shoe manufacturer and a nonprofit where, one of the things that they had was that each board had a position that was saved for that. So the corporate board had the CEO of the nonprofit, and the nonprofit board had the CEO of the corporation on their board. And so that helped to integrate everything. And one of the things that they found was that at one point, the company was having a really hard time with marketing, and they were trying to market to inner cities. And the nonprofit was like, well, we work in inner cities. And so you want us to set up the focus groups, like just bring the pizza and bring this. And the marketing director who I was talking to about this, he said, those were the best focus groups we've ever done because the nonprofit had a trusting relationship with the youth of that city. And so they didn't just eat the pizza and go like they usually do with focus groups and their eyes at big corporate America. They actually really gave us really good ideas on how we could make our product better. So, yeah, so I love the way you put it. And I think integrating is a great term from Jim Austin to steal here.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll have to review that article because I love that idea of integrative alliance. And I want to shift our conversation because obviously you have a book called Do Good at Work. And this has been lauded for its practical advice on integrating this idea of social purpose into any job. So can you share the inspiration behind writing this book and the impact that it has had on readers?
Yeah, no, I'd love to because it's been such a fun journey. So I've been helping companies basically do good for over 20 years now. And I got to a point where I realized that working with leaders, I love working with leaders. As you said in my bio, I work with very large companies, FedEx, HP, Toyota, and working with people who have corporate social responsibility in their titles. I love doing it. But I got to the point where I felt like the change was too slow. Like it's too weak a lever of change to actually transform the organization. And I had given a presentation at Toyota, and I was walking to my car after the presentation. I was very far from the building because I wasn't driving a Toyota. I didn't want to rub it in. So I parked in the far end of the parking lot, and I heard this pitter pat of steps. And I thought, like, why would anybody follow me all the way here? Did I leave my laptop? What happened? And it was a young engineer. And he said, he's probably in his early 30s. And he said, B, I saw in the meeting planner system that there was a meeting it was called something like Toyota Does Good or something, right? And I was really interested. So I decided to crash the meeting. And I didn't know it was only for top executives, but I'm dressed in black and I sat in the back, and I think they thought I was catering. So I managed to stay in the meeting. And he said, I know you weren't talking to me because that meeting was for other people, but you spoke to me because what you're telling those senior leaders to do, which is basically corporate social responsibility, to find a way to have the business succeed while it's contributing positively to these serious societal issues we have. That's what I want to do, but I'm just an engineer. I don't have a budget to do philanthropy. I can't just start doing what you were saying there. So what can I do? And I thought, we'll call him Alex. And I thought, well, how many Alexes are there? So this is about 15 years ago. So how many Alexes are there? And I looked around, and there are a lot. So if you post, like at any of these big Fortune 500 companies, a open post in the corporate social responsibility team, you get overwhelmed with interest. And people from all sorts of areas, not just engineering, but like marketing, auditing, HR, because these are people like Alex that want their day job to do good, to have meaning. They want to sit down on Friday and go I'm proud of my work week, as opposed to going, okay, I designed 4 things and maybe I made some shareholders richer. Is that it? Is that going to be a third of my waking hours for the rest of my life? So it turns out there's a lot of Alexes. And even better, there's a lot of Alexes that have found a way to make a difference. And so this is what I spent the next 10 years doing, was going to these companies and going, help me find these Alexes, and Alexes that have found a way to do good. So it's from the book, From Do Good at Work, there are over 100 examples of individuals within companies finding a way to do good. So Alex, for example, or someone in Alex's position, one thing that he does do is that he brings in interns over the summer. And it was always just this highly competitive process, and whoever got to do the internship got to do the internship. And then he was like, well, what if I turn these internships they were for high schoolers, for high school students. And what if we turn it into, we're going to draw from the schools that are lowest income in the area. And we're actually going to redesign it. So we're not expecting you to get here and understand the basics of a job, that you have to show up on time and all these things. We're actually going to redesign it so that we can accept people that haven't had the benefit of knowing that at the age of 16 or 17, and help them get a leg up. So now we're helping basically individuals that are under-resourced, underprivileged, find a way into the job market or give them a leg up. And so that practice of finding a way to take whatever job you have and make it meaningful, I dubbed job purposing. And it turns out that it's not most employees, which is why we need the book, but there is this mighty minority that have found ways to job purpose. And so I thought, well, everybody needs to know about this, because if you work at one of these for-profit businesses, chances are, statistically speaking, by every single survey out there, it's more likely than not that you actually sit down on Friday and go, my job is fairly meaningless. I'm not doing anything of value. So that's why I wrote the book and did the TEDx talk and recorded the audio version of the book to try to encourage people to take control of what your day job is, so that essentially you are living the spirit of a nonprofit. Like, you are doing good from your job.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. When I was in-house at nonprofits, I was interviewing people a few years ago, and, we were in the midst of the pandemic, and a lot of people were having these identity crises that they wanted to do more meaningful work, that they wanted to give back. Yeah, and it was this idea of, we want to leave the corporate space to go into nonprofits. And my number one question was like, what are you doing today to make a difference in your community? Like, have you volunteered? Have you given back? Because there are, obviously, I welcome people into nonprofits, but you can make a difference anywhere. So how have you actually meaningfully stepped into that position before you even dive into a nonprofit? Because that's its own complex world. Right? But are there ways that you can do that in your daily life?
That's fantastic. And what kind of response did you get?
They were like, we want to make a meaningful difference. Nonprofits is the right place to do it. And so we need to leave our current jobs. And, some of them were not the best environment for them to be in anyways, but it was like they hadn't taken that first step to get involved or, have your idea of job purposing. So I would love to know, you mentioned that term. What is it, and how can people put that into their daily life?
Yeah. So job purposing is just making any meaningful contribution from your work week to others. So it can be your coworker, it can be a customer, it can be a neighbor that's the office next door. It's through your work week. So, or a societal cause. And the Alex example is, he took whatever was in his job description and he reshaped it, right? So that it was doing good. And that's a great way to do it. You can also job purpose by doing something that's still part of your work week, but outside of your job description. So for example, I guess engineers are the theme today. There's a team of engineers at a tech company, and they're at a very northern location where there's still a lot of snow. And one of the things that the engineering team does is that several employees had either slipped or basically gotten their feet very wet and then had a very unpleasant commute home when they tried to take the snow off their cars. So like, you can imagine women with like high heels or something. Like, it's not a good mix, right? You go into work and then you have to come out and take 6 inches of the snow off your car. And so they were like, okay, this is not great. What we're going to do is that on snow days at 3 p.m., we all go out and we take the snow off everybody's car. So it wasn't even just their firm, but like the entire building. That was their way of job purposing. It was a contribution to their other coworkers. And so that's not like part of their core job. It's not part of their programming, but it is part of the work week. And so that's a way to job purpose as well. And so there are many examples. One of the favorite examples, and that this is why I talk about this in my TEDx talk, is Leroy. He's a parking attendant. So parking attendants, per a pay scale survey, are the least likely workers in America to feel that their work is meaningful. Now, most Americans don't feel their work is meaningful. Remember that. That's not true in the nonprofit sector. Nonprofit sector is the exception. But overall, and certainly in the corporate sector, most people work day in and day out and are like, I'm devoid of meaning. It's not doing it for me. And by the way, if you don't get meaning from your job, if you're a full-time worker, don't get meaning from your job, there's a 98% chance that your life does not feel meaningful. So if you didn't get it from your job, you're in a hole that is very hard to get out of. So really, the way to job purpose is to find any way that you can modify your job. Now, it's harder than it sounds. I forgot to talk about Leroy. So what Leroy did was he started checking tire tread because if people have bald tires, that's dangerous. They might get in an accident. And so he's literally probably saving lives by alerting those customers whose tires are bald and are driving unsafe cars. So many different examples. There's managers that just turn the incentive instead of the incentive to reach a certain level of sales or whatever being a gift card to a restaurant, turn it into a charitable gift card. So there's many different ways to do this, but it is hard. It's simple, but not easy, if that makes any sense. The concept is very simple, but most people, when they look at their job and try to job purpose, draw a blank to begin with. They're like, I don't know what my tire checking is or the equivalent of the internship, this is very hard. So give yourself some time. Give yourself several weeks to just think about it. And then the ideas will start popping.
Yeah, I love listening to your TEDx and the story of Leroy, and something like so simple as checking someone's tire tread could really influence like the trajectory of their driving, right? Like it's something that he took that he knew to really change someone's life and like them driving safely. And so that was my next question is obviously the people who came up with the 3 p.m. idea, let's ditch our desks to go clean off snow. Obviously, they have to get that approved by leadership every day on snow days to go out and implement this idea of job purposing. So what are some key steps companies can take to foster a culture that supports the social purpose among employees?
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, before I answer that, most jobs have job purposing that you can do that you might not need any approval. So I'll just put that out there. But it's true that if it's something more formal, then yes, employees are going to need approval. So what does a manager do? It turns out that really what's known as a positive workplace culture is going to be positive for job purposing as well. So really what I would tell companies is make sure that you have a culture where people feel supported, where people have autonomy, where people have opportunities for growth. That helps as well. And where people are allowed to make mistakes. And if you have that kind of positive culture, then it really just takes giving the idea to your employees. So literally, here's the TEDx, it's free, or here's my Harvard Business Review article, and giving employees the idea, and it will probably start happening. If you want to take it one step further, task forces are great. So get 6 to 8 or 6 to 12 employees to say, yeah, I'll serve on the task force to come up with ideas on how we could job purpose. One more kind of piece of advice for corporate leaders is if your company doesn't have a corporate purpose, like what's a compelling reason for your company to exist? Because I think we all agree that it's no longer very compelling to employees or to customers or even to investors actually to exist just to make money for shareholders. Like that is not a compelling reason. You're not going to do well in the long term if that's all you're up to. So if you don't have a corporate purpose, that would be a very good thing to do. And so then, you help align the job purposing with the corporate purpose. That is the ideal thing to do. But if you're not a leader and you're at a company that doesn't have a corporate purpose, just job purpose any way that moves you.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously, on this podcast, we talk a lot about culture. So it does help influence that positive culture and engagement within the company. And, looking ahead, what trends do you foresee in the realms of CSR that organizations should be aware of? And how can companies prepare to stay ahead and make a genuine impact in these areas?
Yeah, so not surprisingly, maybe from my angle, but I do think that the trends and the empirical data support it. I think that what's going to explode, and it's already exploding actually, is in CSR is the employee involvement, the employee ownership of it. So we have employees who walked out on Wayfair, for example, risking their jobs. We have employees who have quit certain companies, and you would think, okay, well, what's going on here? Is it flexible work schedule? Is it pay? Is it perks? And it's no, both of those examples are because the company didn't do CSR enough. So in Wayfair's case, it was that they were selling furniture to the agencies that had at the border, which had very inhumane practices a few years back. And so employees are grabbing a hold of this. And the other case was because their CEO did not speak out in terms of social and racial justice. And so really, actually, a large portion of the firm left, like they left their jobs because their CEO was not taking a stand. So the definition of a good job in corporate America now, it has to do good. And so I think that what needs to happen in corporate social responsibility is that it can't just be a department that is, we're going to do all the good for the company. Employees need to feel that, yeah, the company is performing very high in corporate social responsibility, but also increasingly that they have some say in it and that they feel it. And I think the bar for corporate social responsibility, even just 10 years ago, was like, we know you're a company, and because you're a company and you have to deliver to shareholders, you're going to be doing all these things that aren't great. But as long as you're doing something good, then you're better than most. So we're going to leave you alone. You're not a bad citizen. That bar is long gone. So the younger generation, starting with millennials, have raised the bar. And I think the bar now for companies, it's not totally here now, but I think it will be pretty solid in place within a few years, is the following. First, don't make any of the world's problems any worse. So you're sponsoring athletes, don't pay the male athletes more than the women athletes. Don't put plastic in the ocean. Like every single issue out there, don't make it any worse. At least be zero carbon footprint. Don't worsen anything. But second, choose one, can be more than one, and make it better. So I think that's the new bar. And obviously to get there, companies are going to need the involvement of their entire workforce, because that is a very high bar. You're going to have every single corporate department being like, okay, are we doing any harm out there? Are we making the healthcare gap worse somehow? Because if we are, then we need to do something about it. Yeah, so I would say those are the two things, like much more employee engagement, and the bar is don't make any of the world's problems any worse, and choose one at least and make it better.
Ooh, that is so good. Well, Bea, if people want to learn more about you and the work that you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, at least I try to be. And my website has all sorts of ways to connect, and I love hearing from people. So the URL is dogoodatwork.com. So it's the same as the title of the book, dogoodatwork.com. And I look forward to connecting.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a joy to open up the realm of CSR and just learn more about doing good at work. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Haley.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.